So moving on to some long multiplication now. So this method is going to cover when we're multiplying big numbers, which are way outside of the times tables that we usually learn. And this would usually be really difficult without a calculator, but I'm going to show you guys a really good method of how to do this with a pen and paper. So I've called it long multiplication. The method I'm going to show you is in fact not long multiplication, but is a method that I got taught in school. I absolutely love it, and I used it all the time in my exams, and I found it much easier than long multiplication. And the method I got taught is called the grid method, and I'll show you guys exactly how this works right now. So examples 37 times 84, and the way the grid method works is essentially you split this up into all the different components of it. So 37 is a 30 and a 7, and 84 is an 80 and a 4. And you essentially write these numbers out in a grid. So we'll have 30 and 7, and we've got, on the other side, we've got 80 and a 4. And this now essentially forms a grid. And now what we do is we multiply all these parts together separately. So we'll start off with the two big numbers then. So we've got 30 and 80. So 30 times 80 sounds like a big sum, but it actually isn't. So the best thing to remember here is when you're multiplying numbers with zeros at the end, you can momentarily forget about the zeros, and it essentially becomes 3 times 8. So from our times tables then, we know that 3 times 8, or 8 times 3, is 24. So we can write 24 in the box, but then we cannot forget the zeros on the end as well. So we've got 1 0 from 80 and another 0 from the 30, so that's 2 zeros we need to add back into this as well. So the answer to 30 times 80 becomes 2,400. Okay, we'll then move on to the next box then. So we've got 30 times 4. Again, we can do it the exact same way we've just done it, so we can momentarily forget about the 0. We can do 3 times 4 is 12, and we've got no zeros from the 4, and we've got 1 0 from the 30. So we have to add that 0 back in. And then do the exact same thing in the next box. 80 times 7, 8 7s are 56, plus the 0 from the 80. And the last box is just 7 times 4, which we know to be 28. So we've now got 4 numbers then that we've gotten from multiplying all the different parts together. And the last step to this method then is basically just to add them up. So we've already found a really good way of adding up big numbers in long addition earlier in the video. So let's do that right now then with these. So the first one is 2,400. Next we have 560, we have 120, and we have 28. And we want to add all of these together. So we'll first add up all the units. So 0, 0, 0, and 8 becomes 8. We have 6 plus 2 becomes 8, plus 2 again gives us 10. So remember, we'll put the unit there and we'll carry the 1. We'll then have 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 5 again is 10, is 11. So we'll put the 1 there and carry the 1, and then 1 plus 2 is 3. And that is our final answer. So the answer to 37 times 84 is 3,108. I really hope that helped. I find it really helps to break it down into this grid method. It makes multiplying it and then adding it much easier. And now I'm going to show you another example of that, a slightly harder one. Okay, so now let's do another example of the grid method multiplication then. And this time I've chosen a much more difficult example. So now we have 714 times 0.62. So I've introduced a decimal here to show you that this works in the exact same way as it did before. So remember from last example then, we have to split this up into all of its several components. So we'll do that here then. So we have 700, we have the 10, and we have the 4 to form 714. And down the other side, we'll have the 0.6, and we'll have the 0.02. Okay, so now let's do this in the exact same way we did before then. So the first one, we've got 0.6 times 700. So now this does look like a really difficult multiplication, and the reason for that is because of the decimal point and all the zeros. But just like we did before, where we ignored the zeros, we can also do the exact same thing for now with the 0 point out in front as well. So we have 6 and 7, multiply 6 by 7 gives us 42. And so now, what do we do with the zeros then? So we have 2 zeros from the 700, but we have 0.6 on the other side. So what the 0 point does us is effectively cancels out one of our zeros. So we've got 2 zeros from this side, cancel one out because of the 0 point, and that leaves us just with 1 0. So that will give us 420 with just the 1 0 on the top. And a good way you can sort of sanity check this as well, to sort of check if you're on the right track, is to just to think about it logically. So 0.6 is very close to 0.5, and 0.5 is obviously a half. And if we're multiplying 700 by a half, we basically half 700. And half of 700 is 350, so we know that the answer we're going to be looking for is around 350, and 420 is only just a little bit higher, which is what we'd expect from 0.6. So that's how we know we've got the answer correct. We'll then do the exact same thing with this one down here then, if we do 700 times 0.02. So for now, let's forget the zeros, and we'll do 7 times 2, and that gives us 14. And we've got 2 zeros on this side, and we've also got 2 zeros on this side as well, but this time it's on the other side of the 2. So in fact, we can go plus 2 zeros, minus 2 zeros, leaves us with no zeros. So the answer to 700 multiplied by 0.02 is just 14. So let's do that on this next one then. So we've got 10 times 0.6, forget the zeros, 1 and a 6 becomes 6, plus a 0, minus a 0, gives us no zeros. 10 times 0.6 is 6. Let's do the same one down here. We've got 10 times 0.02. Let's forget the zeros. We do 1 times 2 gives us 2. We've got plus a 0, minus 2 zeros gives us minus a 0. So that gives us a 0 on the other side now. Gives us 1 0 there, and there will have to be a decimal point in between, so it gives us 0.2. Okay, so moving on to the last two then, we'll do 4 times 0.6. 4 times the 6 is 24. Now this one's a bit tricky, so now we have to think about it a little bit here. So if you think about 24 as a number, the decimal point would usually be here, 24.0. But now we've got the 0 on the other side of the 6, so now we have to bring that decimal point back one, back this way, so it actually becomes 2.4. And the last one then, 4 times 0.02, 2 times the 4 is the 8. We've got no zeros on this side, minus 2 on this side, so that is going to give us 2 zeros. Decimal point stays in the same place, gives us 0.08. So now we've completed the grid then, now we just need to add them up, just like we've done before. So we'll do this really quickly then. So we've got 420 plus 14 plus the 6. The next highest number is the 2.4, so we'll include that, 2.4. We've then got the 0.2, so we'll have the 0.2. Then we've got the 0.08, so we've got 0.08. And just like before, it's really important to keep all the numbers in the correct column. So we've got our units here, tens, hundreds, and then we've got our tenths and hundredths here. So now let's add all those up. So here we've just got 8 on its own, so that becomes 8. You've got the 4 plus the 2, so that becomes the 6. Decimal point must always stay in the same place. So now in the units we have 4 plus 6 is 10, plus the 2 becomes 12, so we put the 2 there, carry the 1. 1 plus a 2 is 3, plus another 1 is 4. So 4 comes here, and on this side we have 4 just on its own. So the answer then becomes 442.68. And that is the answer to 714 times 0.62. Looks super complicated, just like how it is there. But if you lay it all out in the grid method, multiply it all separately, and then just add it all up, it becomes super easy. And you can get this right every single time. As long as you follow the rules with no calculator, you can start doing some really, really difficult addition, subtraction, multiplication. And now let's move on to some division. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to move on to some long division, and this is always the one that I found the hardest to do in school. For some reason I just could not remember how to do it, but I'm going to show you guys the method now, and hopefully you'll be a lot better than I am at remembering this. So the example I've chosen is 261 divided by 5. So the way we do this in long division is the number that we're dividing by we'll put right out in front. This is always the smaller number out of the two. We then draw a bit of a box symbol like this, and we'll put our bigger number that we're dividing inside. So the way we do this then is we take 5 and we take the first number in the box, this is now 2, and we'll say, okay, let's do 2 divided by 5. How many times can a whole 5 go into 2? And of course 5 is bigger than 2, so 5 cannot go into 2, not even once, so it's 0, and we'll put 0 up here. So what we'll then do is, because 5 doesn't go into 2 any times, we'll then move over to the next number then, 6. So we'll pair this together, so 26, and we'll say, how many times does 5 go into 26? So now if we think back to our 5 times table, we'll go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So 25 is the highest number that 5 will go into that is less than 26. So we'll say, okay, so how many times does a whole 5 go into 26? And obviously 5 times 5 is 25. So it goes into 26 a whole 5 times. So we'll put the 5 up here. And because 5 times 5 is 25, we'll put that below here. And we'll then subtract them. So 26 minus 25 gives us 1. Because that is the remainder for when we divide 26 by 5. It goes in 5 times with a remainder of 1. So then what we do is we take the rest of the number then up here, see we've just got the 1 left, and we'll bring that down. So now it becomes 11. And we'll do the exact same thing again. So we'll take 11 and we'll divide it by 5. And how many times does the whole 5 go into 11? So obviously 5 times 2 is 10. So, and there won't be any more 5s that go into it after that. So we'll take our 10 and we'll say it goes in there twice. So that's 2 times, so we'll add the 2 here. And then just like we did before, because it goes in twice and it's 10, we put the 10 below. Then we subtract, just like we did before, we'll subtract again. 11 minus 10 is 1. Because that is the remainder of when you divide 11 by 5, it goes in twice with a remainder of 1. And now we don't have any more numbers left. So now all we have is our 1. And we know that 1 divided by 5 is not a whole number. So this is now the answer that we're left with. The answer now becomes 52 with a remainder of 1. And that's our answer. So for those of you who want a slightly more mathematically correct answer, what this actually becomes is 52, and because it's a remainder of 1 and you're dividing by 5, it's 52 and a fifth. And if you really want to convert that into a decimal, you know that a fifth in the decimal sense is 0.2, so the answer is actually 52.2, and that is the exact correct answer to 261 divided by 5. I hope this long division made sense. I found this really difficult to remember in school, but essentially all you're doing is how many times does this number go whole into the number in here, and then you take that number, subtract it, get the remainder each time, bring the numbers down and follow that step, and then the answer on top will be the number of times that this number goes into this number. Okay, so I really hope that helped, guys. So in this video we've gone over the number line, some of the real basics of adding, subtracting and multiplying positive and negative numbers. We've then covered long addition, subtraction, the grid method multiplication, and some long division. And just like I said at the beginning of this video, guys, these skills will be absolutely paramount if you want to get the highest marks in your maths exams, and they'll be just really, really useful for everything you will do for the rest of your life. If you don't have a calculator to hand, all these skills become absolutely invaluable. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I hope you learned something. And if you want to look at more videos, check out my website, mitchmaths.com, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks very much.